Ladies and gentlemen, all our panelists, welcome to Kolkata and welcome to this amazing platform where we're going to talk about two very favorite things in my life, books and films. And what could be a better panel than this to have with us tonight? Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome this amazing panel to the City of Joy. Vivan and Veer just told me this is their fourth time and fourth time, okay. And of course, Sangeeta ma'am is a home girl, shuffling between London and Calcutta, but Calcutta is home for you. And the panel that we are going to talk about, When Words Take Wing, sharing their experience of books to OTT, cinema and social media. A very relevant panel in today's time because this is more than ever, now is the time that books and literature work is getting adapted to OTT and, finding a larger platform in social media because as we say right now, we are living in a time when content is the king. And, I'm not going to, delay this any further. We already know the amazing people we have on our panel. I will quickly move to my first question, which is to all three of you. Vivan, Sangeeta ma'am and Veer. All of you had experiences in working on projects that have been adaptation from a book to a screen. What is the process like for you and what do you leave out and what do you include in this journey of adaptation from book to films? I would start with Vivan.
The really interesting part of participating in any kind of literary adaptation is that one truly gets to inhabit the landscape and not only the author's that particular work but the author's body of work. So you in a sense study their aesthetic as it were and try and fit into that, blend into that tapestry as best as one can. And that's one of the most enjoyable things, that's one of the most enjoyable parts of it because when we read it, our imagination fills in the blanks. But now we actually have to literally do that. So that's always been a very fascinating thing, part of the process.
Sangeeta ma'am, for you, from the author's point of view, what do you really take and what do you leave out in this process of adaptation?
Yeah, I don't think there are any hard and fast rules about adaptation. First of all, whenever you approach an existing text, there are several reasons for which you go to it. So it could be a hundreds of years old Shakespearean text, it could be a 19th century Tagorean text, or it could be a contemporary writer. So there are reasons why we are drawn to such a text. It could be the story, it could be the emotions that stay with us, it could be the characters who just leap out of those pages. So there are several reasons why we do this, and I think when I made my film Life Goes On, which was a sort of an adaptation, a freewheeling adaptation of Shakespeare's King Lear, it took the core structure of a father and three daughters. In fact, that itself is so fablesque. The fact that the father had three daughters and there was a youngest daughter that he loved the most, and then the daughter disappoints him. So it was just that structure which I took into my story and made it a much more contemporary story. And I also had a mother, a dead mother, who haunts the story. Yeah.
I think, the entire process and the journey is so powerful in itself that every adaptation of the same story tells a different experience. Would you agree to that?
Yes, it's always so interesting to go back to just see what each adaptation is bringing to the original
by every
text.
Director,
By
every actor
director.
portraying that character.
And
it's
as
a different
Vivan is
experience.
saying that you start inhabiting not just one text, but you start inhabiting that whole world. Of course, with Edgar Allan Poe, it's just a whole macabre world, and that stays with you forever. But it's the same thing with classics as well. And the more you think it's about a writer writing at a certain time and what did he draw into his text, and today, many years later, why am I looking at this text? What am I bringing to it? So I think when you do an adaptation, then the writer or the script writer also has something to bring to it, also has something to contribute. Just as the way classic plays are done over and over again, but they have something which the director is pushing into it or an actor is bringing into it. So it's always a new process, whether it's working better than what I saw last time or whatever is
Yeah.
very personal, I think.
Yeah.
It is indeed. And when we talk about the medium, Veer, you have created such powerful digital content in the last few years. We have seen like your growth on social media, each one of us, with content after content. Does this process, the adaptation process, does it change when it comes to OTT?
Uh,
You know, because I'm sure like the way people consume in films or the way audience consume in OTT is so different.
it's actually whenever you read a book, there's always some sort of visualization, personal visualization that you have, right? Before filter copy, dice, or anything, my first ever project was actually with Anurag sir, Anurag Basu, and he was making stories by Rabindranath Tagore.
Yeah,
So that was
yes,
my
I
first
remember.
adaptation, and that was my first job in Bombay, in Mumbai as well. So when I went to shoot a day before, I read that story. The story was called Konkal. And I go to the set and I look at the first scene because that guy was supposed to be a footballer. So I go there and I'm like, sir, I read the story. It doesn't look like this. Like, this is not what I thought the story would be. And he said, तूने सोचा ना, but तू director नहीं है. मैं सोच रहा हूँ. So मेरी visualization ज़्यादा important है यहाँ पे, and this is how I visualize things. So when you actually get on board on a project, there is a text, there is an adaptation, but we also have a director's vision. So we are also subscribing to that. So as an actor, I think it also becomes very simple when you're looking at your director and you also have read the story. I have also read the story. Now you tell me, how do you see that? And we just surrender at that point in time.
No, I agree to that. In fact, I remember watching Tales of Tagore and the same story narrated by Ritu Ghosh and Anurag Kashyap is so different in its
Exactly.
portrayal.
Yeah.
And it's the same book.
Yeah.
You know, actually, when I was having a chat with Anju ma'am before the panel, and I was talking to her about my experience of reading a book and then watching a film versus watching a film and then reading a book has been so different in so many different cases. Like, just for an example, I remember watching Sacred Games
Oh, yeah.
and then reading the book. And watching, this movie by Julia Roberts, Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
So I had read the book first and then I watched the film. And I was so let down. I thought the film didn't do justice to the book.
What did you think of Sacred Games?
I thought the other way around. I thought the series was fantastic. I was like, thank God, I watched it first because after watching the series, when I was reading the book, I was like, I already know, and I couldn't visualize it the way the director did while reading the book.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, my question to you would be, whose work do you think has been translated most wonderfully? I mean, it's a question I would like to hear from all three of you. You're an author whose work you think has been translated wonderfully in films or on screen.
That's a very broad question and a tall ask, and I don't wish to be judgmental at all. But I think certain films which sort of stay with you, and as we've grown up, a film called Color Purple, which again is being made in 24, and two films which I've been thinking about so much, The Talented Mr. Ripley, which again was, and there's a new version coming up soon. So there are, these are such major, giant classics. When you think of someone else again trying to attempt the same story, it's quite staggering, and you want to know what this new person is going to bring into the adaptation. So yeah, in terms of international films, those are films which have stayed. What you say about The Godfather, that's like forever and forever with us. That sort of adaptation, that sort of vision.
I actually saw the movie first. And then I was like, I don't have the guts in me to read the book after that. I think sometimes the translation on celluloid, if it is not portrayed for books which are so successful, I think somewhere, do you think it's a letdown for the readers and the viewers? Vivan, what do you
yeah, I think with books, it's almost always a letdown. It's a surprise. I think it's 10% when you think that the film's gone ahead, or matched really the vision of the book. Quite often you come out feeling, no, 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 this should have been different. But then, when Vishal does his adaptations
That's
of
my answer.
Shakespeare, yeah, what do you say to that?
Yeah. But I think whenever, whatever is written is always universal, right? But whatever you read, it's always going to be personal. How you perceive, whether that book is successful or not. Whosoever reads it and going to make it, it's going to be his vision, or probably the writing room if there are 5, 6 people.
Absolutely, I agree to that. So you would say, coming back to my same question, whose work do you think has been translated wonderfully on
I was a
celluloid?
very bad student. I never read books, but since I was a part of stage, I always knew about Othello, right? I knew about these things. And I don't think uh, anything can be better than Makbul, anything can be better than Omkara in terms of adaptation, because they are not just adaptation. They are also being Indianized.
They're like reinterpretations.
Reinterpretations with,
Um,
with the characters. Like, it's not like when you look at Makbul, when you look at Omkara, they are not only good adaptations. You remember Langda Tyagi, you remember these characters because the adaptation is very personal. And I think Vishal sir, I think you also have worked with him. I've also had chance to meet him a couple of times. He's a very homework kind of guy. So if he's doing a Makbul, if he's doing an Omkara, you know that this is like, if I ever go to a stage and I'm being asked which is your favorite adaptation, I think I knew it back then that this is going to be my answer.
Wonderful. And moving on to you, Vivan, you have worked with Vishalji on Saat Khoon Maaf. That's also your debut.
Which was a Ruskin Bond novella.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
So, my question, I'm really intrigued to know what is the process like, because you've worked on the set. What goes around, in the mind of the author, the director, or the actors while they are translating or portraying these characters which are larger than life already? And what is the process like?
I think Vishalji is one of the few or only Indian filmmakers who actually embraces the gothic and the macabre. And he brought a kind of darkness into Indian cinema to which it was previously quite unused, It was, think of what courage it takes to probe the night side in a cinema which celebrates mostly the glaring sunshine. So he's really someone who investigates the human psyche in a very interesting way. And a film like Saat Khoon Maaf, I consider it to be part of his Gothic trilogy. Starting with Makbul and I think culminating in Haider. So it was really an honor to be a part of that, and I just learned so much from him. He's such a deeply literary person. He also comes from the Urdu tradition and from the Hindi Bhashi tradition. So there's an interesting amalgamation of West UP and East UP. West UP being the Urdu belt, Meerut; East UP being the land of Premchand and Parsai. So which is the most likely more Hindi Bhashi belt. So Vishalji is a wonderful synthesis of both these two worlds, and milieus. And recently also Charlie Chopra, which was Agatha Christie. And also another great filmmaker who did amazing adaptations of Shakespeare was Kurosawa. The Bad Sleep Well was Hamlet and Ran was King Lear. And it's interesting, I think Mr. Ray actually said a very interesting thing. He said that filmmakers who come from a different linguistic temperament tend to have the best interpretations of Shakespeare. People who don't necessarily come from because Kurosawa coming from the Japanese culture and Vishalji coming more from the Urdu and Hindi Bhashi culture, they have a different interpretation of it, as would Orson Welles or Laurence Olivier, who are sort of more anglicized, more English, British, sort of American anglicized kind of people. But generally, it's I think it's a process of constant with the text. When we're talking about adaptation, dismantling the text and then completely reassembling it like that.
Sangeeta ma'am, as an author, if you have to script a book, which book you think you're going to pick?
I'll come to some very recent films which I've seen, and something which profoundly moved me was Three of Us.
Oh, yes, what a
And
wonderful
that
film.
could be a
yes.
beautiful novel. It isn't.
Yeah, yes,
it was
indeed.
worked on as a script by 4 co-writers.
Yeah.
But that
yeah.
would have been a very beautiful novel.
And also, I feel like three of us as a film also felt like a novel read in a slow space on a Sunday evening. It could actually be such a beautiful novel. That's true. I agree to that. Vivan, picking up from what you said, the the literary work of directors who come from at the core of it is always different.
And Vishalji is also a poet. He's published a book of poetry also.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I want to know is the process of finding meaning to these characters, which are written by authors, and then translating it in different era, different times. You know, how do you look at that as an actor? As an actor performing, for example, if you had to perform the same character, which is translated in three different cultures, how is that process, and what is the the homework that goes behind as an actor for that? I want to know this from you also, because I've seen some of your work where you have very personally tweeted characteristics to kind of blend into a similar character. Yeah, so Vivan, I'll start with you.
Yes, jumping off from what Veer mentioned, as that when you said that when you were doing the Tagore stories, you went onto the set and you saw that it was a contemporary setting, and that was a bit of a shock at first, because you're like, that's not the imagery we associate necessarily with Tagore. And similarly, there was a similar predicament which happened with Charlie Chopra, because that is also an updating of an Agatha Christie, a sort of Victorian setting in contemporary in contemporary India. And so that was a very interesting thing, trying to be true to the spirit of the original character, which has been written in another context, but yet trying to sort of reimagine that in an updated contemporary setting. That's also one of the great joys of acting.
Veer, you have been, the king of the content-driven platform. You have given hits after hits with so many, characters and series that you have done, which have worked wonderfully for an audience which is very honest to social media. So when an adaptation happens on social media, what goes around, because the audience that you are catering to is very different from the audience that you are catering for films. How do you pick the content for social media? And what do you think works? Because what works for novels or films, does the same thing work for social media, the same content?
I haven't had chance to work in something that has been adapted to YouTube or probably a smaller show. I haven't done anything like that. But I guess, see, everything will come down to only one thing, that whatever is written is universal. You and I will read the same book, you will visualize the different thing, I will visualize something else, right?
Yeah.
Now it depends who actually gets the job to be the director, you or me. Everything depends on that. Everything.
That's so true. That's actually that's true. And moving on to you, Sangeeta ma'am, what is your relationship with social media, and how do you how do you use that? I mean, how personal or how close you keep it to what you write or what you direct?
I think for me, social media is just a way of expressing my current thoughts on what I might have seen or read or been moved with profoundly, or just highlighting certain events or certain things which are coming up in future. It's more or less that. Sometimes I find it a great pain to be active at this every day. No,
I think Veer will disagree.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I will
I
absolutely
throw up a
agree, ma'am.
discussion
Do you
here.
think-
Absolutely agree. What was the word you were telling me in that room? What was that word?
Pichutan.
Pichutan. So whenever I'm on social media, I feel pichutan piche se to get back to the real world.
So, but your work literally reached your audience on social media? I mean, we were just sitting there and we had so many of your fans who came and who were like, oh, we saw you on YouTube, we saw you on Dice Media, this content, that kind. I remember you had this amazing, show on social media where you were with the family.
What
And
the folks?
Oh, what the folks, yeah. And and that, that was such an engaging series. And that was on social media.
Yeah.
That came out on YouTube on
That's actually,
Yeah.
YouTube is not social media. It was not social media back then. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So when-
so
so-
is it difficult to churn out content like that? Is it creatively exhausting when you are...
It's a choice. I never made that choice. When I entered the city, I was in a government job before that. So my biggest problem was to sit idle. I couldn't just sit at my flat, look at everyone so busy, and I have nothing. So I did every job that I could get. Every job. Production, costume, casting, direction, anything that I got. But when I started working, YouTube was one space that allowed me to do what I could do, which was relatability of characters. Like, if I'm getting a scene where I have to probably fight with my father, I will work hard to make sure I don't think that this is it. This is my scene to make sure that I act my best. No. My point is that I'm doing a scene with my father. Most of the people should relate with this, which was back in 2017 the thing that catch people's attention, like make them feel that we are one of them. But social media is different. That's a choice. And I made that choice. Like you asked that, how do you choose your content? I try and be away from social media as much as I can, but still I try to get to the internet area of filmmaking or shows or anything, so that, because YouTube is free, people can watch it. Not everybody has Netflix, not everybody has Amazon and everything. So YouTube, my only idea to pick my work is to stay a little away from social media, so that I don't have to do everything. Like you rightly said, sometimes it's a bit too much. I feel that every morning, ma'am, every morning.
It does turn to be a pressure at some point.
Yeah. Pichunta, I
And what's
agree.
worrying is that if you're an artist and you're an artist too, so with creative artists, if the number of people who are viewing and that sort of thing starts becoming a criteria about looking at yourself or your self-esteem, and it's happening all around us, it's very worrying.
Like
It's a matter
you
of
very
concern.
rightly mentioned that film, Three of Us, right? Why do we think Three of Us can be a book? I'll tell you, because there's a moment where you can actually, you can take a moment, you can read between lines, you can look at the character going through many things in one scene. Social media is not like that. You can't breathe. Your thumb keeps going on.
Yeah.
Like I can't.
You think people want to consume mindless content, or where they don't have to put in a lot of effort to understand the subject on social media versus a film or a book?
I think we are way past that area where people want to or they don't want to. We all are in some sort of habit and we don't know it. It's not anymore about if they want to or not.
No, but it's also not really a habit. Today it's AI and all the rest of it. So if you've watched a reel for some reason or the other, every day they'll be hurtling 1,000 reels at you. It's not something you want to do, but suddenly when you open up, that's what you're watching.
Yeah.
So it's bizarre.
I was sharing this with a mother, with my cousin only, that I read somewhere कि जिन घरों में ना lunch, dinner और breakfast time पे होता है ना, एक certain time होता है, उन बच्चों का खाने के साथ relationship बड़ा ऐसा होता है कि हाँ खा लेंगे, it's okay, 9 बजे नाश्ता बन जाता है, lunch बन जाता है, dinner बन जाता है. जिनका timing थोड़ा off हो जाता है ना, they eat everything. कहीं मिल जाए, कुछ मिल जाए, ज़्यादा खा लेते हैं, बड़े हो जाते हैं and all that. So social media, I think, is pretty much like that. You don't have intervals. You don't have any time. It's your phone. Your internet is in your pocket. You can't escape it.
Yeah, I agree to that. But I mean, as we are talking about content that drives books and OTT and films, Vivan, my question to you is the process what we said for social media similar for you? Is the struggle similar for you when it's for films? I mean, the entire process of doing content which might not be driven by social media. How is that process like? We heard Veer's point of view about what it is like to be driven by social media, what it is like to not be driven by social media. Does that affect your creative process? Because in today's time, whatever you are doing, whether you're writing books or doing a film, your presence on social media is very significant. As Veer said, you know, we have continuous access to it.
It's interesting. I actually tend to use social media primarily for utilitarian purposes. If I've got something to share, some work or something, and I also like to share obscure films, books, plays, whatever, you know, and also to support something that a friend has done. I think social media does have a great positive potential. Also, it can be a great way of spreading, you know, positivity and that sort of thing. And
We are
of course,
live
the
on
flip
Facebook
side,
right now, and all your friends and fans and all
We
the.
love you, Facebook.
No, but the flip side of it is what we are talking about. Is that the addictive nature of it, and also I think my theory about social media is that social media has replaced what channel surfing used to be in the 90s. So the way we were talking about how we it's not just social media. I would say the internet in general, Google also. You know, if you're constantly catering to your interest, it is completely customized entertainment. You know, tailor-made to whatever your interests of the moment may be. You know, you can see something about your favorite band, your favorite movie, favorite book, whatever you want, it's available to you at your fingertips. So hence, what happens as a result of that, it becomes very much akin to what channel surfing was in the 90s, where it's interesting, you know, sometimes it's almost like the same neural synapses start firing. You used to remember, because I was a chronic channel surfer as a kid in the 90s, Cartoon Network, and, you know, I used to keep watching. So now it's like sometimes, you know, if I find myself browsing on YouTube or the social media or Google or whatever, it's almost like the brain recalls those same sensations.
It's basically the same book with a different cover.
No,
Exactly,
I think
yeah.
the change is earlier we used to have a television and a remote, right?
Yeah.
We are switching the channels. Right now, there's no remote. The TV is saying, I know what you want. I'll tell you.
I think
I'll
it's,
tell you.
it's,
And then
it's
you're
a
just
serious
sitting
loss,
and you're like,
loss
you're
of
right.
agency. You know,
It is.
with
Yes,
channel
exactly.
flicking, you know which channel you're going to or stop at.
That's true.
But this
It
doesn't
is.
let you stop, and neither does it let you choose what you're seeing. That gets quite staggering.
No, I don't think boredom is a very important ingredient of life, and we should not be deprived of boredom, because in boredom sometimes interesting things can emerge. I'll give you an example. Like we were talking about channel surfing in the 90s. So suppose you're channel surfing MTV and you're waiting for that favorite music video of yours to appear, but it's not going to come until whenever it's going to come. It's not in your control. So as a result of that, you end up being exposed to 10 other songs which you might not have been exposed to otherwise. So hence you're kind of learning something. You're getting exposed to something which you wouldn't have normally out of your own
Now you can
choice.
just go and watch that song directly.
Now you
and
don't have to wait. Now you don't have to wait for those 5-6 hours. Now you just go directly there. So
Agree, agree. Before we open the panel for questions from our audience, I would like to ask one question to each one of you. Sangeeta ma'am, starting with you. If you have to direct a novel, which you haven't done yet, if you have to pick one book, you know, one author, one book, which one will it be and why?
Now that requires thinking. Which one will it be and why?
And I'll also give both of you the question so that till the time Sangeeta ma'am is doing the thinking, you guys can also do the thinking. If you
Let
have
me
to,
direct.
no, my question is, if you have to play a character from a novel or a book by an author, which one it will be and why? Some serious thought by our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Please keep
Thinking
some
about
questions
all
ready.
the 7 books I've read in my life. Out of them, 6 was self-help. So there's only one left. Okay. Ma'am, first
Please
book
don't
is-
tell me you want to be the goat from Alchemist.
Could have been a great answer. Why?
You're not talking about Poe.
absolutely, I've actually played Poe's characters on stage, and so that has been immensely enjoyable.
Because that's one story that I'd like to go to film.
Yeah, I mean, Roderick Usher from Fall of the House of Usher, I think that character is as fascinating as King Lear. He's a deeply complex character who's, you know, sort of plagued with all kinds of neuroses. He'd be as complex a character as Hamlet to play. Literally, you know, Roderick Usher is one of the most interesting characters in all of literature. And but there's so many. I would love to play. There's a lovely short story by Premchand called Mange Ki Ghadi. I always wanted to play Mange because it's a very sweet story about friendship. It's about a friend who loans his watch to someone else because he wants to
Mangle Ki Ghadi.
Mange Ki Ghadi. It's a very obscure Premchand story, and I've always wanted to play that guy. He's a very interesting character. There's so many. Of course, it would be wonderful to inhabit any of Manto's or Ismat Chughai's characters. So many. It's difficult to choose here.
No, that's a true actor, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a round of applause for Vivan. He's left us with a lot of options, and I hope all of it can happen for you. And moving on to you, Veer.
There's this story of Munshi Premchand only called Riyasat Ka Diwan. When I was, I think, 11 or 12-year-old, I did that play, and I played one of the villagers. And I always used to feel bad that why is that guy playing the king? Because he had such great costume. I think that's my answer. If they ever make a film on that, I would like to play the king.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So can you tell us, take us through the story also a little? Like what is it about? What about the character, apart from the costume? What?
See, we are talking about a 12-year-old, right? I was told that आपको ऐसा क्या वो शब्द होता है मुल्जिम बनना है आपका ऐसा बिल्कुल ऐसा थका हुआ हारा हुआ कि हमारा टैक्स माफ कर दो and everything, and that guy had all the power, so that child wanted to have that power, and probably that's what I wanted.
Fair.
But also because he mentioned Manto, I always and I have always loved it. I know Pankaj Kapoor did a phenomenal job. But to overtake Singh is something I can definitely.
You know that short story has been considered to be unfilmable, and Ketan ji made it with amazing. That's one of the great.
That's I think the simplest climax of all time, simplest in terms of क्या बोलते हैं उसको what do you call that?
Man's land and the whole mental inside.
Yeah. मतलब वो blocking wise, simplest scene of all time.
Yes.
But it's such a complex scene because I don't know what I'll do as an actor when somebody has told me that this is the place where you have to act, this is where you come from, this is where you have to go, and you don't want to be in either of them. You want this wall to go.
I think the entire creative process of writing, directing, acting, I think all of it together when it comes to Celluloid is just beautiful experience for us, the audience. And thank you so much for agreeing to, come and share all these amazing knowledge behind the scene, in front of the scene with us. I'm going to open the panel for the audience to ask anything because this is an amazing time that we have got all three of them together. And I hope you have had a great time. Do we have questions? Yeah, I'm going to take 3 questions. Sir, can we have a mic for? There
you go.
Yeah.
You want this?
Oh, they have a mic. Okay.
Thank you. What a brilliant discussion this was. Question, I mean, as someone who has went to the same university as Shongita, the same department, it is about Shakespearean adaptation. My broad question to all of you is, Shakespeare wrote for the stage. He didn't even mean his plays to be published. So when we talk about adapting Shakespeare, is it really adaptation? Is it really cinematic adaptation? They were always meant to be acted. I mean, the words are pretexts, really. I mean, of course, he wrote brilliant words. But, so just a kind of provocation, really. And the other thing is, I mean, we always kind of get carried away by the recency bias in the adaptations we watch. I absolutely love the Vishal Bharadwaj adaptations. But I was just talking to Anjum here about Angur, which is a brilliant Gulzar film of comedy of errors.
Yes.
And in fact, many of us have been introduced to Shakespeare through these adaptations in Bangla, in Hindi. So I think there's a long history of Shakespearean adaptation in Indian cinema, which needs to be sort of, reflected on.
Absolutely. I think Sangeeta ma'am should take this question.
Debanjan's was a statement. Where's the question?
I think, even when we talk about adaptation, ma'am, if you look at Shakespeare's work, it's been adapted over and over so many times with so many different generations, and it's still relevant. Whether you talk about, I mean, look at Romeo and Juliet. I think it's been adapted in different languages, different cultures, different cinema over and over year. But I think what Sir wanted to ask was also that it was never meant for films. It was meant for stage, and it was meant for an audience which was not watching you on celluloid. So when these adaptation happens as a director or as a writer, what is the thought process behind it to kind of translate it into what the
Yeah.
work is?
You know, as I said right at the beginning, it's pretty much what is drawing you to that particular text. So I think when a director like Kenneth Branagh does Shakespeare, he's a man of the stage, and he's bringing that element into it, and it's very, very Shakespearean in the way we understand it. Here in India, having gone through this whole English literature colonial process, our approach to Shakespeare is different from, say, perhaps the way Vishal came to it from his own, you know. So it's when you're trying to break away from the way you've learned a text or the way it's been received, it's a different approach, and Vishal's would be completely free, and he'd think of how I bring this story into my Indian rural, semi-rural context.
So also in the adaptation process, a lot of it is directed by the writers and the directors about how they're adapting it. Does a lot of the creative process of writing the book gets lost in adaptation? Do you agree to that? Yeah. Do you think like work get lost in the
No.
process of adaptation?
No, you know, that's where we come to this whole debate about who's being true to the text. I mean, what are you being true to? Is it that room and the color of the curtains that's the truth, or the truth of the essence of the characters? So it's really that
True.
the truth
Agree,
that you're
agree,
seeking.
Agree.
No,
Thank you for the
I'd like
question.
to add to that
Yeah.
about Shakespearean adaptations is that I think what fundamentally differentiates the British school of the Kenneth Branaghs and Oliviers and American Orson Welles from the Kurosawas and the Vishaljis is that the English school, it is about saying Shakespeare's words in an eloquent way and sort of bringing out the poetry of the lines. Whereas Kurosawa and Vishalji bring out the poetry that they read between the lines. So it's like the difference between adapting text and adapting subtext, in a sense.
Having said that, I think when we've learned something by memory, when you learned something by heart, and it's been with you since you were 11 or 12, and then an actor comes on screen and says tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, you still do get goosebumps. Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. I think I'm going to take the next question from the gentleman in blue.
Yeah. Hi. Obviously, you guys have been both behind the camera and in front of it. So my question was, obviously there are going to be some nuances when, as an actor, you read a screenplay, and as a director, you read the screenplay. How do you make the other party understand that your point of view is going to be the better one when presented?
Veer, would you like to take this question?
Yes, sir. My answer is you don't. Especially when you're an actor. You don't. But it's also because you should not always listen to actors. I might be wrong, but I think we do have a problem. And that problem is when we are reading the script. If we know the character that we are playing, we'll read that a little hard. Like in school we used to have those marked answer, maybe wo marking hoti thi ki ye important hai. So we read it like that. A director cannot do that. A director will probably have one moment that this is my best scene. I will shoot it like this and that. Actor thoda sa zyada wo घोड़े की तरह होता है. Like वो आगे नहीं देखता है. So even as an actor, if I read a script, I will not believe myself. I will give it a second read. Because I can't also unsee that, because अगर हो आप actor और आपका अगर ध्यान वहाँ पे जाता है, I don't think it's right to fight that. Let it happen. Read it thrice. Read more. You will understand other characters also. You will understand other things also. But I don't think if a director is adapting from a book and is making a film and you're actor on board, I don't think you should actually say anything. and get kicked out.
Vivan, what was your process of finding the character when you did Sat Khunma, for example? I mean, that's a character already written, and as an actor, when you are portraying that, were you a director's actor, or you did put your personal interpretation of the character into it?
Yes, one does that in gradations in one's own way, but I do feel like as Veer was saying, that one film acting especially is, I think it's 80% execution. You're executing someone else's ideas. You're not trying to impose your ideas on the material. You're executing someone else's. As actors, we are saying somebody else's thoughts, right? So that's one of the basic fundamentals of acting, of film acting and of stage acting is, and I think that's what makes an actor's director, I suppose, is that, okay, even if I do disagree, even if I do have my own ideas, I'll take it upon myself as a challenge to try and make this work.
No,
Even
but
if-
when you don't know the character,
Yeah.
when it's a new character for you, that's, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But when it is a character that you have read in a book and you
Pre-existing
know,
character, yeah, okay, like
so
that.
then what is the interpretation like that for you?
Correct,
Is it
correct,
like,
correct,
okay, my director's vision is this, so I'll do this? Or you're like, no, I have read this character as a kid, or, I have an interpretation of this character. How do you, bring your personal touch to that?
Yes, so the personal touch, I think you do it between the lines, in the finer moments. That's where the director leaves it up to the actor's craft, whatever you're bringing to the table, right? But so it's interesting with regards to Sadhguru Maaf, the character itself was. There was all kinds of interesting aspects to the character and to the relationship that the character has with the Mem Sahab, with Susanna. And there was a very interesting dynamic. So that was a really profound experience to explore that, to explore the nuances of that and the finer details of that character and to bring it up. Because also the character ages from 17 to 45. So that was also another interesting process. With the other literary adaptations that I've been a part of, again, like as I said, I try to just be true to the aesthetic of the writer. With Mr. Seth in Suitable Boy, the character, the drunkard, and the brother, the wastrel brother sort of thing. That also, just knowing the landscape and knowing the material and trying to be true to that, but yet, as you said, bringing in your own little 2 cents to it,
Yeah,
That's
yeah. That was actually a very detailed and a very personal, answer towards this question. Thank you so much for taking us through that, because I don't think we have ever seen this from an actor's point of view. We always see that as a reader's point of view, because we are like trying to justify the character that we have read in the book. Any more questions? Okay, can we please have the mic?
Hey, this is Aditya. Thing is, when we talk about Bengal cultural revolution, especially in the filmmaking space, I guess normally it's said that it ended with Satyajit Ray, but I think it continued a little bit till Rituparna Ghosh, right? Now the thing is, the golden period of Indian cinema was 50s, 60s and 70s. Okay. Now, I saw that you have written, you have done a lot of works in the film history and then you have moved on to documentaries and all that. Now, the question is, in the recent OTT platform, we are seeing a lot of films and series are coming out, being portrayed on a national level, coming out from Malayalam space and Tamil space, right? I'm not saying Bengali things are being that popular that side, but what I know in Bombay, I have spoken to people, I've sat with producers there, and I know they pick up directors from Bengal and take them to Bombay and actually get the films directed there, Hindi films. But why is not, I don't know whether your expertise is in Bombay or here, but why is not contemporary Bengali series or Bengali films gaining a national exposure in the OTT platform the way Malayali, Tamil, Telugu are gaining popularity? They are literally
Sir,
gaining popularity.
I'm going to,
Because in Bombay also, if they don't make a career, people shift to actually the south. They don't come to
I'm going to
Bengal.
take it forward from there, sir. What I understand from your thought process is that you are really very upset that why Bengali literature is not getting national relevance. But what's your take on it, Sangeeta ji? Well, I would like to know because I mean I feel otherwise. I feel that
Okay,
you
I
know.
think I just need clarity. Is it Bengali literature you're talking about?
I'm talking
or
about Bengali films because we have
cinema?
very profound,
Cinema,
yeah,
okay.
we have film series.
Oh, you're
We have
saying the adaptation of
Yeah,
South
yeah.
Indian movies
no,
into
not adaptation. I'm talking about South Indian films in original content with subtitles or dubbing are
Okay.
becoming very popular across
Okay,
India.
okay.
The same is not happening with Bengali
Bengal.
series and Bengali films.
Okay.
But going by history, Bengali cinema is one of the best in India.
Yeah.
50s,
Yeah.
60s, 70s. Somehow the shift has taken place. We still have Gautam Ghosh around. Buddhadev Dashgupta, I think, made a very nice film on a detective.
You don't know the
I think
name
you
also.
answered your question, sir. You just answered your question.
Yes.
Bengali films are better. That's why वो prime time पे dubbing हिंदी में ना लोग देखते नहीं बैठे.
I think Anwar ka gussa hota hai, something like that, what the name was. The thing is, as I said, the Bengali directors are being picked by Bombay producers to work on Hindi films. But the Bengali, I know people, I know somebody who has
I get the drift of what you're saying.
And-
I think, there are two things. You're talking about markets. You're talking about the entire South. And obviously now there is a huge nexus between even the biggest stars in Bombay and a nexus with the South. So when you start making a film, it has to be available in Malayalam, in Tamil, in Telugu, because it's a huge territory there which has to be also captured. You're also looking at co-stars coming from the South and working with Bombay.
Yeah.
In Bengal, I think the expansion of regional markets have just about reached Bangladesh. So SVF or Hoichoi, the platform on which you see most Bengali films here, have that equation. They're selling their territories to Bangladesh. We're sitting there in London. There are other friends sitting in the US, and we're constantly working and advising the London Indian film festivals or the Asian film festivals. And it's a market which should have opened up by now, because you have Bengali anyway is the 6th or the 7th largest speaking language in the world. So there's a huge market. But unless people are ready to go out there and buy a ticket and go to the theater or subscribe legally, not just keep downloading
Absolutely.
stuff and pirating stuff, if that whole practice from the audience's side doesn't get better, it's a difficult territory.
Because if you look at Bomkesh also, it was actually made in Bombay,
Yes,
which
yes.
became a
I think-
national
I think,
sensation. And we also had Bomkesh in...
Right.
It was not given the same...
Yes, but to
platform.
sum this up, honestly, I would like to say it's all about the audience, and it's about the support. It's about how relevant the subject is and how relevant it is in the mind of the audience. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And
Thank you.
I hope Calcutta continues to have you guys back, because we love your work. We love what you're doing on the celluloid, and it's amazing to see the kind of literature that gets transformed through the work that all three of you are putting in individually. As I say before wrapping up, support literature, support films, support Bangla films, Hindi films,
Absolutely.
support Indian literature, support what the artists are writing and making. That's the only way we get to do this, and we get to celebrate art. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. It has been an incredible panel, and if I was you, I'll make that louder. Come on. Thank you, good night, and go home safe.
Also, thanks to APJ Kolkata Lit Fest for
Thank you.
setting up this panel
Yes.
with a wonderful
Absolutely.
group of people here.
15
Thank you,
years
Shashi.
of APJ Literature Festival, and incredible time all these 15 years, and looking forward to many, many more.
Thank you.
And with this, we have arrived to the conclusion of the 15th edition of Apeejay Kolkata Literary Festival. The last 3 days, we saw some of the most brilliant and creative minds of the country and beyond on this stage. And we would like to thank all our delegates who graced the stage and gave us time. On that note, we would also like to thank the partners of the festival: refreshment partner Cha Bar, gifting partner Typhoon Tea, healthcare partner AMRI Hospitals, radio partner 93.5 Red FM, event partner Nafreet, hospitality partner Kenilworth Hotel, institutional partners APG School and iLead, festival partners Australian Consulate General Kolkata, alias Fawcett to Bengal, Embassy of France in India, and Tollygunge Club, session partners Oxford Junior Literary Festival, APG School, Australian High Commission, alias Fawcett to Bengal, and Tollygunge Club. We would also like to thank all the volunteers who has been assisting us over the 3 days. Once again, thank you everyone, and a very, very warmest gratitude to the audiences who have supported us throughout the 3 days. With this, we wrap the 15th edition of the APJ Kolkata Literary Festival, and we shall see you next year. Thank you and good night. Yes, please let's have a huge round of applause for finally ending the 15th edition of APJ Kolkata Literary Festival.